Did the designer of this ship know you wouldn't always be standing in the middle?
You're gonna spend all day swabbing decks and all night in the brig until we get to New York. What do you say now, Ishmael?
I suppose you realize how attractive you are.
You know, a real man could make an honest woman out of you. In fact, he could make several honest women out of you.
On the left, or on the right, rather, Bronson Pinchot, and on the left, the actress with whom you played that scene.
Where is she?
She's gone now.
Oh, she's a wonderful lady. She comes back almost every week. She's kind of a Margaret Dumont character. She comes back as a different person every time. And sometimes I trounce her, and sometimes she trounces me. And it's what we call, it's what I like to think of as comic karma. In other words, you know, the first one, I mean, I'm taking one shot after another. And, but then she comes back as a woman burglar 2 episodes later and knocks me out with a blackjack. It's pretty fun.
Terrific, very, very terrific.
Marianne Mueller-Liley.
The last time that we did this together, I really botched it, didn't I?
Actually, you took out a still of me with Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop, and you said, Brian, you just slayed me in 48 hours. And I remember thinking, I'm on camera now. Either I'm going to have to laugh because it's too funny, because at that point, it's probably like the 4th interview I ever did in my lifetime, or I'm going to have to gently tell him, and I think I did part of each. I think I said, it's Bronson, or something. But anyway.
I hope I was mortified. The worst I've ever done is there's a rock performer named Meatloaf some years back. They all know this. For the first 20 minutes, I called the guy Meatball. And finally, somebody came out from the control. Finally, they came out and they said, I'm always mortified when I do that. But then, when I used to report news, I've killed thousands of people in fires that are alive and well today.
Oh, you're kidding, really?
Yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes, but they're forgiving souls out there. What is the trouble with Larry? The premise is that you're presumed dead. Larry is presumed dead.
I'll tell you that the interesting thing about this show is that the premise is not the show. The premise is a reason to get this guy, this wonderful character that these 2 writers, Andrew Nichols and Darryl Vickers, thought up. He's this kind of Groucho Marx for the 90s. He just says whatever comes into their heads. Yeah. And they thought it would be fun to get this person who doesn't have a job and doesn't have a life to move in with his former wife and her family, because they were married and he got abducted by baboons on their wedding night and has been gone for 10 years. Nobody knows where. He claims to have been an adventurer all over the world, which is why he's stowed away in that clip. But it's just really an excuse to get this sort of loose cannon into a yuppie's household and have him wreak havoc with their lives. And that is the trouble with Larry, that he wreaks havoc with their lives and comes on to their friends.
Well, I mean, his wife has remarried because Larry's been gone for 10 years.
Right, and her little girl, their little girl is actually his. He finds out in the first episode that the little girl is his, which is kind of fun. To go from Balky, who was completely asexual and didn't know how to make a baby, to somebody that has an 8-and-a-half-year-old daughter is quite fun.
You know, as I look back on the last 20 years, the character that you had, Balky, one of the great ones, and the other was the Robin Williams character, Mork.
But I didn't do that one. Oh, I see. You mean I did Balky and he did, yeah. Actually, they were both created. Yes, Brian. They were, it's interesting because Mork was created by the same, many of the same team members that created Balky. It was Dale McCraven and Tom Miller and Bob Boyette, who also kind of banded together to do Perfect Strangers.
Anyway, a funny thing happened to Bronson Pinchot as he began to study art at Yale University, if my research is correct.
Yeah.
The stage came into your life. Performance came into your life.
There was a big. I was at Yale to be a painter and get a. But I didn't want to just go to a fine arts school. Interestingly enough, there's an illustration school at Syracuse University that I badly wanted to join, and this show takes place in Syracuse, and that's really the end of the anecdote. But anyway, I went to Yale. This show takes place in Syracuse, and I have lots of interesting Syracusean correspondences in my life, which we'll get to later. We'll have a whole Syracuse section. Hopefully someone from Syracuse will call.
But are there sayings that are germane to Syracuse?
No.
or idiomatic uses of the language? Like if you go to the Midwest, Milwaukee, Appleton, and they're real good is what they say if something is done well. It's just, gee, Bronson, that was real good, which is a high compliment, you know, and I just wondered if there was some...
I'll tell you, I grew up in South Pasadena, and I remember my sister, we were born in New York, and then we were sort of marooned in South Pasadena, which is really sort of the capital of clean cut, you know, at least in those days. I mean, it still is, but it was, you know, a perfectly
even more so,
Spielbergian little town. And we pretty much had still vestigial New York accents when we were little. And I remember my sister coming home and saying, Mom, some girl, she was teaching me volleyball, and I hit the ball, and she went, "Really good." And we didn't know what that meant, but
she's
really good.
But anyway, you were studying fine arts at Yale.
I was studying. I wanted to be a painter, and I was in the fine arts. I was in the painting program, but outside the post office at Yale, they used to have these huge billboards advertising auditions for plays, and I just became seduced by one of them, did this play, and then the head of the theater studies department pulled me aside after a performance and said, "You have great stage presence, and you have no concept at all of how to act. Would you like to
pursue that?"
Pursue that, and I said, "Yes.
Yes.
Please show me the way."
You mentioned that you went to painting school, which it was more than that at Yale.
Well, yeah, it wasn't painting school. It was Yale.
What I'm getting at here is, can you be taught painting?
You can't be taught how to see, but you can be taught how to put it on a canvas.
You can be, but you can't be taught how to be Matisse. You can't be taught how to be Whistler.
No.
You can be given mechanical skills.
You can be given. I mean, look. I mean, if you look at the world a certain way in your visual, and then someone says, "Look, this is what acrylics are, and this is what oils are, and this is what watercolor is," then they can just kind of show you and hover over you and make it worse, which is what most good teachers do. And then you rebel, and you finally find yourself. I mean, that's what I did as an actor. The first thing they do, if
I could ask you to hold the thought.
Yes, please. Hold it.
Just hold it for a second. I have to do this little
what are you
bit
doing?
of business here.
Can I just lean forward?
Yes, you.
I'm fascinated.
Look adoringly.
Right.
Back with Bronson Pinchot after these messages.
Hello.